Today's manhwa is about how a young master randomly teleported 5 years into the future and became a bully who beat up anyone. All starts with the fact that we saw a very expensive hotel in front of us and a car similar to a Mercedes C-Class stopped in front of it. And inside this machine sits our main character named Chu Chen, confident in himself just like the real Sigma Patrick Bateman. He is the son-in-law of the Song family. Surprisingly, firstly, there is a girl behind the wheel, and secondly, this beautiful girl has been married to our foolish hero for 5 years. Turning to us and showing her face, she tells our hero to run away to another country and another spider universe. Without hearing a single word from her, he simply decided to go into a dream in which he would see a pink world of sweets where unicorns fly. And now she is already getting out of the car, telling her butler that he should look after her husband, who is fast asleep like a baby. As soon as she came out, they immediately started taking pictures of her. Paparazzi, and she seemed to feel like Angelina Jolie on the catwalk. And then several people noticed our hero who sleeps with the window open, discussing what an idiot our hero is who walks around with a fairy flower. Not hearing what they were talking about, he simply decided to blow inflatable water bubbles through his nose as it was summer. And on his neck hangs and glows some strange turquoise stone, which depicts a new version of the famous yin and yang. Inside the building itself, from some room in the corridor, some loud conversations are heard that even the door bends under these sounds. It was the head of the family, Mr. Song, who, like the reporters, speaks out loud that our hero is a complete loser who can be gotten rid of. In the office itself, it seems there are only 3 people and a new person who is a Taoist who talks with the head about how in 5 years their family has risen from the dead. But the thought that the marriage of Song Yan and our main character will end with the help of a contract tonight begins to bother her. Her father, Mr. Song, laughs and says that she will no longer have to suffer living with that stupid guy, thanking her for these 5 years of service to the family. It looks like she clearly doesn't want a divorce because she's trying to convince her father not to touch her husband. That is, Chu Chen, who is sleeping soundly now. However, he is apparently in high spirits because he is glad that he will finally get rid of our hero and will be able to make another rich guy his son-in-law. And this rich guy who looks like the king of beasts, whose name is Ye Xiao Huan, will become the new son-in-law for the Song family and elevate it more. Suddenly, someone's foot gets out of the car and steps on the red carpet, and the crowd says that Master Yi has already arrived. So he stood in front of us, the famous young gentleman from the Imperial Palace, looking at whom the girls are already going crazy and taking pictures of him. Walking along the red carpet, he asks one of the butlers about who this guy is who decided to take a nap at such an important event. And a bunch of them, having recognized our hero, go to wake him up in order to just say hello to him, although their smile is clearly villainous. 2 of his subordinates begin to pull him back and forth, shouting for him to wake up and at the same time do not even respect the chain of command, although our hero is higher than them in status. Because they pushed him hard, he simply fell and lay on the back seat, as if it were a sofa in his apartment. Because of his stupidity, these guards begin to laugh as if our hero were some kind of comedian, and one of them's mouth begins to smoke, like school children in the toilet with an electronic device. But even though our hero is asleep, his own pendant appears and flies next to him. It seems that this is exactly the technology of the future that is shown in films. Leaving him alone, this blonde goes on his way, and behind him the guards look at each other and laugh. In the space of this place, a piece from our hero's amulet flies like a boomerang with which children play on the playgrounds. And it hits this male Barbie right on the head and ricochets like it was Rico's attack from Brawl Strasse. So this legendary hero woke up, who just broke his pendant in order to throw it into the mane of this lion. Opening the car door but still sitting there, he turns to young Master Ye, asking what he can do for him. This Dio looked at him as if he were a policeman who saw a black guy who was just walking around the city. His dogs immediately began to bark that he dared to attack their master, and now they would put his head straight into the guillotine, but the Lion King stopped them. They'll start crowding over him, laugh, saying that he doesn't even know how to speak, and can't even go to the toilet on his own, because his wife is always looking after him. Smirking at him, he places his foot in front of him and warns him, because tonight he will become the new son-in-law of the Song family, and our hero will become trash. Mr. Ye got really excited and began to humiliate him, while making a face as if he had stepped out of the anime crazy excitement. Xiao Ye leaves only because he already needs to be inside the hotel. Mocking our hero, they leave him. But he remained there like Kaneki Ken looking at the floor, and he looked in their direction with a menacing look, not understanding why everyone called him a fool, and flashbacks began. But once 5 years ago, he received the ability, and was thinking about how to become famous and become richer than even Elon Musk and Bill Gates combined. He accidentally locked away his powers and magic while he was weaker than a baby, and was hit by his wife's car, that is, Lady Song Yan. Realizing that 5 years later, today he will be thrown out like an empty Coke bottle. He gets out of the car, slams the door, and goes straight to the hotel. After all, everyone wants to get rid of him, except for his faithful wife, who apparently really loves him, and even quarrels with her father over him. He begins to think that he got such a beautiful wife just like that, because all these years she protected him from the giants who wanted to remove him. And proudly raising his head, he decisively goes inside the building because now, 5 years later, the moment has come when he must protect his wife. Having entered, he decided to look around, and immediately from the entrance, they began to humiliate him, saying that he was a stupid son-in-law. Looking at the other side, we see some kind of pirate from the Caribbean, who is Song Yan's cousin named Ching Peng. Seeing him, our hero makes the eyes of a hunter, remembering all the moments with him in the past, because he never took him seriously. After all, Ching Peng, even in secret from everyone, caused physical harm to our hero, which he then suffered, and he was used as a punching bag. Calling our hero by name, he spits directly into a glass of wine, apparently again wanting to somehow humiliate him. And he says that if he drinks the entire glass of wine right now, he will not beat him as a reward, and everyone around him will laugh. Pretending to be a fool, our hero asks why such a high person gave him such an honor, because if he doesn't, he'll drink it himself. He begins to pick up a glass and bring it closer to his lips to drink. Everyone around laughs as if they had seen a funny video on TikTok. This guy with parted hair is thinking of being proud of himself because he was not smart enough to come up with such a funny way to humiliate him. Someone's hand grabs his mouth and he hears that he should go down if he wants to drink this wine, and he himself has become an avatar from the films. Having lowered him to his knees, our hero began to pour wine on him, and he seemed to open his mouth on purpose because he really wanted to drink. He's already starting to choke on this wine, so much so that even his pupils disappear and he becomes a zombie from the movies, and everyone around him is simply in complete shock. Asking Ching Peng about whether he was drunk, Chu Chen throws it just like a bowling ball to get a strike and receive a gift from the administration. And the crowd simply fell silent, still thinking that our hero was stupid because he took seriously his word that he could drink the wine himself. This guy starts coughing, cursing our hero and everything, and wine comes out of his mouth and nose, although he looks like someone who has been pierced with a sword. Suddenly he begins to take something from a small shoulder bag, saying that our hero has embarrassed him in front of so many celebrities. So this Jack Sparrow, who decided to change the color of his hair, begins his attack and rushes straight towards our hero with a knife. Suddenly his hand is grabbed by someone else's hand, although he almost reached the target and a fun show would have happened. But they are stopped. It was the same butler who now looks like the Terminator who came out of the melting lava and warns Ching Peng not to jump out every time. But his excuse was that this guy publicly humiliated him, and now he needs to take revenge on him to clear his name. The butler seems to be accustomed to such clashes and says that he will be able to take revenge on him after the event. And admitting his guilt for a while, he pushes our hero just like cars during icy conditions on the track with summer tires, and our hero stands without emotion. And the butler, as it turned out, came simply to pick up our main character because the head of the family calls him, and he agrees to go with the butler. And this villain smiles in his thoughts that he will be able to take full revenge on him after he ceases to be the son-in-law of their family. And now a huge door like a gate to heaven opens, and inside there is just light and nothing more. Apparently our hero did not survive after all, but there were a bunch of people sitting at the table, as if it was a meeting of the world government, and in the middle sat someone whose face was not even visible. The president of the president was apparently there. Now at least he is addressed appropriately, because until today he was treated the same as a mongrel, because at other meetings he sat in the corner and just listened. Without making anyone wait, the head of the family says that Qi, that is the energy of our hero, gave their family good luck with which they rose from the dead. And since the Taoist master told the head that Chu Chen's luck would last until today, they must immediately separate them in order to save the family. And the first son-in-law of the Song family, named Xin Ping, gives him a divorce document along with a pen, and at the same time asks whether he can write at all, humiliating our hero. The second son-in-law named Zhou Jian also joins the first one, saying that he is not even able to hold a pen. To write, laugh at the top of their voices and humiliate him, but he doesn't care and is nervous looking at this document on which his future life depends. But he only cares about his wife who sits and is sad just like Kaneki Ken who was locked up for torture, and only she decides whether he will sign or not. Tired of listening to all their insults, she screams at everyone, defending her husband, because everyone here thinks that he is slightly underdeveloped and demands respect for him. Since the third daughter of the Song family asked, they immediately shut up, but they are still laughing, only without making a sound, as if the administrator gave them mute on the server. Our hero smiles looking towards his wife, because he is faithful to her to the end, and if she doesn't want to sign anything, then he won't do it either. It's just that this agreement makes her think and feel sad, but if she signs it, he won't be here that very second. During this awkward pause, the butler announces that the young master from the Xia family from Yangcheng has arrived, and the head rejoiced as if he had knocked out a legendary thing. And he adds that Mr. Xia is looking for the most famous son-in-law of the Song family, and the first son-in-law immediately gets up from his place, thinking that it is he who is being called to him. And so the two of them, smiling, go to meet this gentleman, saying that this will be another great victory for them. The only son of the Song family, named Chu, asks his mother what kind of family he had never heard of. But this family turned out to be much more powerful than the Ye family, that is, the family of that Lion King. After all, if someone can get even one step closer to the Xia family, then he will immediately fly to the skies like a heavenly dragon and stand on the flag of China. And her mother adds to her that if she can win the young master from the Ye family, then she will finally fulfill her duty in the family. Looking at all this, our hero understands that nothing better should have been expected from the Song family, because they are ready to sell their daughter if it is profitable for them. It was very noisy behind the huge door, because several people were shouting there, claiming that there was no son-in-law here who was beating others and beating them, and the sound was getting louder. With the words that he finally found it, he enters this huge hall, throwing open the gigantic doors into the room. Everyone in this meeting opened their mouths as if they had learned that their family was now destroyed forever, but apparently the children didn't care at all who came. Songyan's mother's eyes just lit up that she could even see the stars, and orders everyone else to stand up because this person is Xia. With a smile, she walks closer to this Xia, thinking that he is probably looking for their second son-in-law, and he greets him like a sweetheart. But he simply pushes the second son-in-law away, ordering him to get out of his way because he doesn't really need the second and the first. And this proud guy approaches our hero, telling him that he saw him beating a man in the hall. But in response, our hero did not even pay attention to him. And this young gentleman, all beaming, extends his hand, introducing himself as Xia Bei, and says that he admires our main character. Everyone else here, in complete shock, simply opened their mouths as if they were about to eat the biggest burger in the world right now. Xia Bu calls our hero for a personal conversation tomorrow, and our hero agrees only because he simply has nothing to do tomorrow and has no plans. And these two energetic guys shake each other's hands, smiling, showing respect for each other. Apparently at this moment, our hero grew up. The father and mother of the Song family still cannot understand what is happening now, because this guy cannot be the one the gentleman from the powerful family himself was looking for. And our hero, grinning, shows everyone what he really is worth, but they shout that our hero is a fool who should not pay attention. Here's the meeting room where everyone is now trying to figure out the situation, and the ceiling glows brightly like a glowing stone from Minecraft. Our hero is already sitting much more confidently in his place, and the others come to the conclusion that this Xia saw Chu Chen beating Qing Peng in the hall. And the head of the family begins to think that if at tomorrow's meeting our main character somehow offends Xia, then the family will fall completely. This is all starting to put pressure on his nerves, and veins are just starting to appear on his forehead. The main thing is that they don't explode like a nuclear bomb right now. He can no longer tolerate the behavior and whims of his own daughter, and shouts at her to sign the divorce document right now. Even her own mother asks her to sign it, because then they will be able to receive less damage from the Xia family if they lose in the negotiations. Everyone around begins to tell her to sign, and put psychological pressure on her, saying that everything is for her good and prosperity. Her hands are shaking, and even her pen can't stand normally, but in her thoughts she thinks that all this is extremely unfair to Chu Chen. Seeing how she is already holding a pen near the place to sign, he begins to think that he has decided to choose a family. But it seems like the signature was just a huge strip of ink right on the paper, or is this another noob attack Saibota? Rising from her seat, she begins to shout to the whole hall that her whole family is pathetic if they are going to abandon the one who has worked all this time for the benefit of the family. Her choice caused our hero to be shocked because it was extremely unexpected. Even the father seemed to be frightened and could not say anything in response, and simply looked at her while she gave them everything that she kept inside. She begins to cry, saying that she never liked any Ye Xiao, and says that she does not want to be a tool in order to conclude a marriage alliance. The mother is already starting to get angry. The main thing is that she too does not start to erupt like a volcano, and behind her two sons-in-law are simply shocked by the action that is now happening. The father apparently lacks a little tolerance. In response to her aggression, he also responds even more, hitting the table, threatening her, but did not finish. When suddenly it starts to tear like a piece of paper right in half, it looks like someone failed to make a paper airplane. Hearing the sound of paper being torn, Mr. Song had already decided to stop being the head of the family and wanted to become a Smurf, as he turned blue. It was our hero who in a second tore the paper about filing for divorce into small pieces, and it was like snow, and only here the new year began. The first son-in-law and head of the family seems to be the same person as Tyler Durden and the narrator Sebastian, because they were both very outraged by the action of the main character. But in response to them, with a calm tone, he says that he understands their feelings, because this agreement is very important for further development. But Mr. Xia only wants to talk with him. And to protect his wife, he says that Mr. Sun will have to stop forcing her to sign. And building a villainous smile, he threatens by telling the most influential Mr. Xia about everything that is happening here, and their family will slide down the hill. The fact that our hero, who was taken for a fool, suddenly became as smart as Albert Einstein makes him afraid because this threat is really tough. The first son-in-law adds that he cannot pretend to be a genius, and if he does something wrong, who will be responsible for his actions? From somewhere, someone's voice says that he himself will decide this issue, but it was not our hero, and the head thinks that it is Ye Xiao. It was the downfall of all the girls at school, namely Mr. Ye, who agreed to resolve the conflict with the Xia family in case of failure during negotiations. 5 minutes after this, they sit and think about what else can be done in such a situation, although nothing can be done about it. Just because Mr. Ye's will is for our hero to communicate with Xia, this head cannot do anything, thinking that this is a drunken joke on the part of the Xia family. And this blonde decided to make a bet about our main character with Mrs. Yan, because the one who manages to make a deal with the Xia family will get married to Yan. And the head himself wants our main character to lose as convincingly as possible, and all this gives no reason for doubt, and all this will show the power of the Yi family. But of course there is always a plan B, and he whispers in the ear of the butler Ru Hai, talking about sending Chu Chen to his usual state. It seems this is a state of flow. Finally, leaving her meeting room, Song Yan thanks our hero for standing up for her, even though he himself should have done so. The butler comes up behind her and tells her that she needs to go home, but our hero apparently doesn't like it, as can be seen from his facial expression. And Chu Chen tells him to rest, and we see some kind of corridor that appeared from the backroom universe. There is a sign for the women's restroom hanging next to the door, and you can hear some girls talking. Inside the restroom itself, there were 2 girls who were discussing how our hero humiliated Song Qingpeng in public, and how the butler stopped him. Our Yan, who overheard their conversation about the fact that Song Qingpeng is preparing a group of people, comes out of the restroom. Immediately at this moment, she picks up her phone and starts calling the butler Ru Hai to prevent the danger that Chu Chen had found himself in. Some kind of emergency door, like a door that opens only in case of fire or for a warehouse, and it is slightly open. Here we have a butler together with our main character going down some stairs, and the butler seems to have crawled out of the anime Jojo is talking on the phone. The lady tells him that the butler did not allow Qingpeng to beat Chu Chen, and therefore worries that this Qingpeng does not attack the hero. This villain says that Chu Chen is now next to him, while calming her anxiety with his words. With the words ogi the fact that he will deliver our hero safe and sound, as if he were a Bugatti who is being transported on a truck. They are going somewhere together. And so they come somewhere, and our hero is calm, although this is clearly some kind of organized singing at him. Our butler already became a shadow silhouette. In the phone call, our Song Yan thanks the butler for deciding to keep an eye on Chu Chen, and this cunning fox responds by simply doing his duty. And so the butler, like a faithful dog, brought his master what he had been waiting for, and this half-neffer asks him to go outside while they deal with him. Without any further questions, he leaves this warehouse and immediately closes the door behind him and just waits. But even the head himself gave the butler an order that he could inflict any damage on our hero in order to finally get rid of the hero. And here's a crowd of some kind of rocker group with mohawks. He hits the pipe with his palm and calls our hero by name. Now there should be some kind of action. In a rage, this guy decides to play his solo concert for our hero, because today he publicly humiliated and disgraced him. Apparently, this guy had watched enough of the anime Berserk Zero, because he began to imitate Guts, saying before the fight his cool phrase that blood is thicker than water, and begins his attack. So this huge pipe, big as a tree trunk, arrives, and our hero most likely froze time and is now simply examining the cracks in the pipe. The butler waits for his cousin to finish his business, and 2 girls walk next to him, actively discussing something with each other. And having opened the door, this old fox tells this whole gang that they should not touch his face, because most likely the head himself wants to put makeup on the face of our main character. But at the same time, not a single answer is heard in response, and the mustachioed man thinks, because it has become quieter here than in a coffin buried 1 kilometer above the ground. Entering there, he noticed a bunch of guys with Iroquois who simply couldn't drink the whole pot of cherry compote that their grandmother had prepared and cooked for them. Everything he saw before his eyes seemed like some kind of legend that was told in childhood, because all of them could not fall from one mentally retarded person. Some kind of hall where auctions are most often held, and our hero is glad that he used a cool skill after descending from the mountain. And he regrets that now he has to deal with guys like that group, who look like American teenagers speaking at rallies. And while he was calmly walking around the building, suddenly the voices of some more were heard, and all this attracted his attention to itself. And there was another group. Apparently they were all cosplayers. In the middle there was a guy from Dragon Ball, and to his left there was Saitama at minimum wage, and a bunch of other people. Our hero, of course, heard all their words of insult about how they humiliated his wife. This apparently greatly offended our hero, and the other guests stood in shock. Our badass Sigma, the reincarnation of Patrick Bateman, addresses a bunch of hooligans, and they all suddenly stand up as if they were in the army. He summons an aura around himself, a direct parody of Dragon Ball, and asks and orders all these guys to apologize for their words this very minute. The bald guy immediately begins to rage, because bald chihuahuas are always the most aggressive, but the fiery hair stops the Hulk. And they all start laughing in a crowd at the words of our hero, because as soon as they started talking about them, our hero immediately appeared, as if they had called him to them. This cosplayer pokes right into the heart of our hero, then all that remains is to wish him health because he will need it, because our hero is simply furious. So the bonus comes for the crazy trick, because even the regeneration buff didn't help him, although his physique looks like he's a jock, and he flew away in one hit. Here comes the revival of Goblin Slayer. Our hero in just one day has become more powerful than anyone in this world, and around the gang stands in misunderstanding. All of them stood up as if they were statues from Easter Island, not understanding how our hero, known as a fool, was able to bring down their leader in one blow. But apparently one blow was not enough for this guy, and he begins to be resurrected and turns to our hero with the words that now he is definitely finished. He too apparently is a real lover of cherry juice, and even if there is no glass nearby, he decided that he could drink it simply with the palm of his hand. Fury overtook our hero, because this guy is really ready to turn him into dust and completely destroy him. It looks like it will be very interesting. Seeing the face of his leader, this guy who looks like a child at a matinee in kindergarten grabs his head, worrying about the main character because their leader is a boxer like Tyson. The bloody hand attacks our hero with its fist clenched, and now our hero may not be able to sleep well that night. All those bald mannequins and minimal one-punch man raises his fist up while supporting his partner, a boss who is likely to lose. While his huge fist flies straight at our hero, he just looks at it, as if for him it's all like a slaughter. The secret technique of a real warrior who does not have a weapon in his hands, namely a blow to the most vulnerable area of this man. His cast was immediately interrupted. All these rockers just stand there in shock, not understanding what he did because this action is clearly prohibited in all martial arts, and they start to sweat. This tough guy falls to his knees in front of our hero in a second and screams throughout the entire hall saying how unhappy he is. And he orders all his subordinates to attack this impudent man, and our hero just stands there as if he's watching some kind of action movie in which he himself is not participating. To avenge our hero, the four of them fly to the rescue. It seems they are the Winx fairies that we deserve, each with a weapon in their hands. Here we are again, near the very door from which it all began, and inside the butler is trying to wake up Ching Peng. Raising this bloodied one-half-balled, a detective interrogation begins about who did all this to them, and barely moving Ching Peng opens his eyes. Barely speaking, he opens his mouth and says the name of our main character who is causing all this commotion, but the butler does not believe him. And the story continues. Ching Peng begins to talk about how they all flew to attack Chu Chen, and now they have reached their goal. But our Minecraft witch simply twirled her fingers around and cast some kind of spell with a smile on her face, and somehow he forced all of them to fight among themselves and attack only each other, and even none of them understood what happened. While they were talking about what happened, some loud sounds begin to disappear. This all interrupts their wonderful dialogue about the philosophy of life. And now the captain of the team begins to imitate not Dragon Ball, but Gaara from Naruto. Because half of his face turns purple, he holds his stomach, saying that he will kill his subordinates. But these bald and stupid guys don't understand why they attack their leader, instead of attacking their target, namely our hero. Lying on the ground like a vegetable of the captain, someone puts his foot down, and it looks like it was very painful for him. And he orders this gang to retreat, because if they come even one step closer to him, then 100% he will break something else for him. This scares everyone nearby. This guy clearly does not like everything that is happening now, and he begins to cling to the honor of his family, because he turns out to be a young master from the wrong family. But our cool hero responds to him with indifference, because all our hero needs is a simple apology to his wife, and the pressure on him becomes more and more intense. In his thoughts, this guy thinks that he shouldn't lie here because this is the territory of the Yi family. There are a lot of his people next to him, and our hero is a fool, so now he's being disgraced very much. After all, the only reason why he came to this event was simply to see what would happen, and he found himself in such a difficult situation. Our hero is already beginning to threaten that he will begin to put pressure on this lying guy if he does not do what he asks now, and he begins to call the name of Mrs. Song Yan. With tears and blood from his mouth, he shouts the name of Mrs. Song and asks for forgiveness with a waterfall in front of his eyes, and shouts words of forgiveness at the entire building. And so everyone just silently looks at how the young master will react to this, continuing to stare straight at our main character, who was smiling. And of course he removes his foot from him, treating him like a mongrel with a grin and talking about how he really is a good boy. Young Master Rong's assistant, turning pale, understands that all this will not be forgotten for a long time, and their reputation will also fall. At this moment, a rather expected character appears on the scene, namely the head of the Song family, who begins to shout at our main character. So the whole gang came together as if they were Shelby brothers. The head does not understand why our hero is still here because he was given the order to go home. And Ye Xiao asks his manager Pan about what happened here. Zero and this manager just freaks out from his touch. But of course he adds a little from his imagination and says that our main character attacked Rong Dong just like that without a single word and beat him up in a humiliating way. But looking at our hero, this blonde of course immediately thought that this was hardly possible and assumed that he had some kind of power helping him. This Barbie who changed her gender to male turned out to be a really cunning guy who is suitable for the role of the young master of an influential family. After all, he took advantage of the situation and began to put pressure on the head of the Song family, saying that they could have a tripartite cooperation, which has already broken down on one side. After all, the third party was only the Wrong group, which belongs to the Wrong family, whose young master, our son-in-law, just beat into mincemeat. And he adds that now they are unlikely to ever be able to conclude some kind of contract with the Wrong family, and in his thoughts is that luck has left their family and that's it. After all, our hero only started to harass the Song family after he lost his 5-year fortune. The whole crowd only looked at him. Realizing that he needs to somehow rectify the situation, the head of the Song family begins to bow to the young master of the Wrong group, giving him a chance to receive compensation. In anger and rage, he supposedly politely refuses the offer of the head of the family because he clearly cannot accept and receive courtesy from our son-in-law's family. And in the end, in anger, this ninja tells Chu Chung that if he returns home today completely safe and sound, he will immediately change his name to his friend. That is, he shouted that he would change his name the other way around. Instead of Dung, he would become a nude. But our hero does not pay attention to all his trepidation. Only Mr. Sun is worried about this. At this wonderful moment, the wife of our main character comes to the place filled with action. Who does not understand what is happening now? And the red-eyed RD, because every person in the city will want our hero dead without his help, so he won't have to try to hire a killer. And opening his hands, this lion begins his speech about not spoiling relations between families just because of a single trifle. And this guy advises the head of the family to leave first because the event was organized in honor of a birthday and says to take someone else with him. At this moment, after the blonde's hints, he begins to more or less understand what Ye Xiao is talking about. And like an obedient subordinate, he obeys his orders. And immediately he shouts at the crowd of people standing behind that everyone is allowed to go. But there is not enough space in the car for everyone, forming up for our couple. However, the solution to the problem was to send Chu Chen in a taxi. This greatly angered young Miss Yan and made the main character angry. Going against their father, they say that if he lets Chu Chen go right now in a taxi, then it will be the same as taking his life. But father is pretending to those who don't even understand what she's saying because it's for the benefit of the guests. All the guests should go with him, but there are no places. To make her worry even more, he says that he will personally come out to meet our hero if he can safely get to the right place. After all, if it weren't for Mr. Ye, he wouldn't even have this chance. And this guy says that he will personally pour tea for him if he gets to the right place safely. And even Rong Dong begins to laugh evilly and agrees to continue the three-way conversation only because Family Man Song treats him so sincerely. Since everything went according to plan, the blonde says that tomorrow he will come to pick up Mrs. Yan in order to carry out a cooperation agreement with the Sia family. Everyone begins to go home, leaving our hero to travel alone in a taxi, and with a grin they say that this is their last meeting in person. Taunting him, the entire Song family goes to their home, smiling and joking on the way to the car, because they are always ready to burn some money for the impoverished hero. Only it doesn't matter to him and he's just looking somewhere, and Song Yan completely fell into depression and became the reincarnation of Kaneki Ken. Her mood dropped to 0. And furious with the family, Yan takes our protagonist by the hand as if it were school play and leads him towards the taxi stand. Stubborn and brave, just like Joan of Arc, she leaves her family, because until they sign an agreement, they are still married. His actions surprised not only the whole family, but even our alpha guy Moto, who thought that everyone had abandoned him. The head just goes crazy and yells at his daughter to come back right now as if it could work, but the blonde stops him like a barrier. After all, this guy loves to get fucked something that he couldn't get, because soon she herself would come to him, abandoning our hero. Here is a city at night in which it seems there is some kind of eco-park, because next to such a large city, there simply cannot be a huge forest right away. And the driver was the only son of the Song family, who was sent by his father to look after his sister because Chu Chen is dangerous in himself. And the sister admits that Chu Chen made Rong Dong angry, and most likely right now they are being pursued by the people who ordered this guy. In a calm voice, the red-haired man asks our hero why he decided to do this, and our hero replies that he simply opened his stinking mouth in the wrong direction. This completely infuriates this bully. He does not understand why in the 5 years since he humiliated him, he never hit him either, and receives sarcasm in response. Smart reasoning begins about what Uncle Ben said to Peter Parker, because with great power comes such great responsibility. Song Yan agrees that if there is no intelligence, then there is no need for strength either, and says that he will soon take our main character out of the city. And she asks him to always be honest with her, but two identical cars appeared behind them. It looks like Fast and Furious 9 has already begun, and the race is just beginning. This Jeep crashes into the back of their car at full speed, shining its headlights at the longest distance. This collision made everyone, of course, except our hero, get scared and panic, and driver Ryan Gosling begins to drive at full speed. Song Yan gives an order for his younger brother to quickly leave the city and go further away, accelerating and breaking away from them. But she was interrupted by our main character, who asks Song Chu, "Let him out of the car because he will deal with them on his own. It will shock everyone." This genius says that now everyone who is in the car is in danger only because of him, and if he lets him out, then they will both be safe. Of course, Song Yan stops him because she is sincerely worried about his safety, because he will be killed as soon as he shows up. Suddenly, she falls in the other direction and hits something in the car. Apparently, she will soon go out of hibernation like bears in winter. The crazy drift apparently driver is actually literally Ryan Gosling from the movie Drive, who has been revived and is now driving around the city in China. And so our hero gets out of the car, slamming the doors, saying that Song Chu should protect his sister and leave, because he is a good driver. A cool guy is always really cool, and without a single feeling of fear, he walks away from the car. And there his wife is screaming inside. So as expected, all these huge cars arrived with a bunch of people from the wrong group, and the silhouette of our hero stands far from the car, almost next to the forest. And immediately, as soon as he saw them, he goes deep into the summer. It seems he has his own plan, but others think that he simply abandoned his wife and decided to run away. The commander gives them an order that all the guys run after him and bring this brat to him. This night will be very interesting. After all, this crippled Rongdong must get rid of our hero with his own hands, and Mr. Ye is supporting him behind him. Apparently, this is a battle of 2 against 1. Mrs. Yan hits the car window asking to be let out of the car immediately because she must help our main character. She turns to Song Chu to let him out because she needs to negotiate with Ye Xiao. But the red-haired man does not listen to her because he is here to protect her, and it will be dangerous. Her face changes dramatically because she is now ready to sacrifice everything she has just for the sake of Chu Chen. And if something happens to him, it will be bad for everyone. Because she is willing to disown Song Chu as a willing brother for the rest of his life, this makes him wince and become a new actor for the movie Avatar. He agrees and they both get out of the car, and according to the agreement, Song Chu goes after Chu Chen, and she goes to negotiate with Ye Xiao. They are already starting to approach her, and while they were walking towards her, he decided to immediately ask about what he needed to spare Chu Chen. And Rongdong, without speaking in detail or in any other way, immediately declares to the third Mrs. Song, asking if she knows that it is possible to sign with a fingerprint. After all, this pseudo-villain, are you going to beat him to death and then use your fingerprint to sign the divorce document, or everything can be softened if you agree now? This makes her indignant because right now they are taking advantage of the opportunity to get a signature for a divorce, and accordingly, a marriage with Ye Xiao. Until this moment, the calm young master suddenly became a furious tyrant and pressed Song Yan to the machine, demanding that she shut up. The reason for his anger is many things, but the main reason is that all 3 chances he gave to the Song family were in vain because of Yan, and now he is shifting the responsibility for everything onto her. Everything he does now scares her, because he is now ready to kill our hero and get this girl so that he can then play with her during an overnight stay at Uno. And in the forest we have Song Chu standing. He of course sees what these 2 men are doing with his sister, but at the same time he does nothing, just standing by the tree. But seeing all these scenes, he is not even able to move, because he is so frightened by the yawning situation that even a paralyzed grandfather could move better than him. Suddenly someone's voice seemed to be a provocation, and the light Jedi attacked this Song Chu and fired a light right into his temple. It turned out that it was Chu Chen who had already begun to return, but the red-haired man did not understand how he survived among the crowd, and in response he simply said that they were lost. Our hero immediately begins to ask him why he is inactive, because before this the guy was showing off because he's like 10 people from the wrong group. And the reason why he doesn't go is because he is afraid that the relationship between the wrong group and the Ye family will completely collapse, and his father will beat him with a belt. Mocking Song Chu, our hero simply walks towards the car, but the red-haired man is shocked and does not understand his motive, because this is the same as prescribing a death sentence for himself. This sensei begins his moral teachings, and when he stops, he calls the red-haired man by name, and neon leaves begin to fly around him. Song Chu no longer trembles, but at the same time he listens with all his attention to what our main character is talking about, and this is his turning point. And his quote was to protect those you love, especially if someone offends them, then he must always respond in kind. and goes to showdown. And while he was walking straight towards them, they noticed him immediately. And the very first to notice him was that same offended guy, smiling and going to get punched in the face again. The native begins to jump on his victim with his metal stick, which can only cause a bruise, and dreams of his revenge. Our hero accelerates and his combat concentration slows down everything around him, and like a real man, he is going to deal another fatal blow to this guy. While his fist is flying, of course his wife is worried about him, who was so scared that she turned into Nolik from the Fixies. The blow was delivered with crazy damage. Perhaps even the blow of Iron Mike Tyson himself would have been much weaker than this blow. Until this moment, the guy who was having fun has now even lost his pupils 0, and cherry compote is coming out of his mouth. It looks like he drank too much. Everyone is simply shocked that our hero was able to hit the young master of the wrong group and even probably turn him off not just temporarily, but forever from life. Rongdong flew further than if a football player had kicked the ball with all his strength, and our hero didn't even really move from his spot and stood as if he had already defeated everyone. He looked at the blonde with a menacing gaze, and like a tough guy from some mafia, said that now it was his turn to receive several blows to the face. But he doesn't seem to be scared at all, and on the contrary, he starts laughing as if someone decided to tell him a joke, and says that our hero has simply lost his mind. After all, he is simply destroying his family's reputation by hitting and shutting down the Lost Podent from Wrong, and is now going against the Ye family. But he is not listening and goes to him. Since now the relationship between the Song family and the Wrong group is completely broken, they are forced to ask for help from the Yi family, that is, from him. For this Lion King to start helping them, our hero needs to kneel right now and ask for mercy from him in order to get help. A high-speed blow from Muhammad Ali himself, and just like a car that didn't notice the pedestrian, this blonde's teeth begin to fly apart. Our hero, smiling with red eyes, tells the blonde guy who is a fan of Barbie to shut up, and he himself looks like Guts from Berserk. So Ye Xiao flies with a bruise that appeared immediately, and his wisdom teeth fly so often that you might think that the new year has now begun, and there will be tangerines. This guy, like a hero, stands in a pose as if he defeated all the villains who attacked him, and a light appears behind him as if this is the end of the tunnel. He begins to drag a trash can with him, saying that trash like him has forgotten where his home is, and now he will direct him to the right path. The proud lion, like a puppy, was already afraid that our hero was coming closer and closer to him, along with the trash can, and they would now have a wonderful connection. Attack from above like Tarzan with the help of a lazo, he puts a trash can on his head so that it is like his main clothing, because this is the fashion of our year. From the impact of breaking through the bottom of the trash can, he immediately lost consciousness, and his pupils turned white, and this guy became Herobrine from Minecraft. He fell and lay resting in his new home. We hope that he is not alone there and that he has a pet in the form of sewer rats that will warm him. He kicked and placed his foot on the trash can as if he were a knight who had defeated a powerful dragon and stabbed it with the sword of a heavenly god. While the blonde was resting in a trash can, he decided to ask Yi Xiao about where his subordinates were and where were the consequences that he was so shouting about. Chu Chen decided to play a little trick on the young master and opened the entrance to his secret base, that is, to his sewer, and began to do something while his wife approached. Approaching him, she started shouting at him because she asked him not to get into fights, and he decided to just grin at him. But now he has angered 2 families. But he says that he doesn't perceive all this as a fight, and takes out bundles of money, apparently going to buy himself a couple of chains for his neck like black rappers in America. But he simply caused one-sided damage to them, and the money for the fact that they scratched the car. He looked at her with an absolutely honest smile. Songyan herself is simply shocked that for the first time in 5 years, our hero is solving any problem on his own like a real man. She too quickly, like Flash, began to leave the crime scene, but our hero tells her that she still needs to pick up a paralyzed man like Sun Chu's grandfather. But while they were walking towards the car, Song Chu crawled out from under the bushes as if he, like street cats, decided to do his business there. And when he finished, he immediately went out. And so, in a millisecond, they simply climbed into the car and drove off in an unknown direction straight to Zakat, while young Mr. E. French rolls. A night city in which knowledge shines brightly, and at the same time the full moon sparkles in the sky today, celebrating their victory. In the car itself, they talk about how they will now leave the city, although they need to go home to their family so that our hero will be warmly greeted by Headsong. She asked him to never do such crazy stunts as in the game Need Again. For speed, but this Andrew Tate doesn't worry about anything and says everything is fine. But the red-haired man begins to worry about him more than he worries about his life, saying that if not Ye Xiao, then his father will end him in any case. Songyan also begins to think and says that his brother is acting. You are absolutely right. But our alpha male, by interrupting them, attracts their attention to himself. His argument was that proud aristocrats like them would never tell anyone in life that they were beaten by some mentally retarded person like our hero. They are just now thinking about this and are simply shocked by the decisions of our Albert Einstein, who cannot get out of his flow state like Seijuro Akashi. So he decided that this great shame would go with them to the grave, right to the very path of hell, and their people would also be silent about it, so there would be no problems either. And despite the fact that they planned a cool escape from Abi and Roblox, our hero will still remain at Spawn because he has a meeting with Mr. Sia. He simply begins to relax in the back seats, saying that he is not the one who breaks agreements, and his wife begins to worry about him because he is not at all like his former self, who was branded a fool. And Song-chu also decides, together with our hero, to return home, because as soon as they return, they will be served by the first son-in-law and head of the family. Apparently, even the red-haired one was faced with how stubborn our main character was, and his decision was to return now, because they would return anyway. Determined and proud, Song-chu concludes that he will protect Chu-chun until the end of his days, but it seems that he is not the one who can protect others. Still sitting like El Pacho, our hero in his thoughts smirks at the boy's intentions because he really doesn't need his protection, and for the sake of attack. And they all finally decide to go home. But before returning, they decide to call their father to say that they are all fine. There was some kind of car near the entrance to the Song family mansion, and conversations within the family about why the elder called their father, that is, the head of the family. It turned out that the second head, that is, Mr. Song's brother, complained to the elder about what Chu-chen caused at that party, and now he has problems. Because of what he did today, his position as heir has significantly weakened, because he was able to become the head only thanks to the luck of our hero, and now they demand that the second take the place of the head. For the first time in the manhwa, the first two sisters appear. The brunette is the first mistress, and the second is the redhead, and they talk about how it seems like the end for them. The head of the family begins to get very angry at what our hero has done, because now he can safely fly into the skies, and wishes the hero peace in another world. Analyzing the situation, he told everyone that they had given Chu-chen to the wrong group, and therefore could continue trilateral cooperation, which is why he remained the head. They all begin to rejoice that the death of our hero at least brought them something, and the first son-in-law stands up screaming and says that he would like Chu-chen to suffer. Still angry at our alpha, he concludes his words by saying that Chu-chen's painful death will be a great chance to mend the relationship between the Song family and the wrong group. He picks up the phone with a smile, and there Song-yan talks and greets his father, and hears that they returned safely with Chu-chen. The last line begins to split his brain into small atoms, and in the background, Thor himself, the son of Zeus, begins to scream, and the head has become blue and pale. He repeats what she just said, still sweating cold and as pale as a vampire from an abandoned mansion. The soul begins to leave the body of our head, and the first daughter asks him about what happened, and his phone falls straight to the floor, like teenagers flying from their houses. His voice begins to tremble. He cannot even close his eyes from fear, and his dear daughter asks again and again whether this is true. So another car drives up to the gate of the Songhouse mansion and stops near the gate. Now our main character has returned, who right now with his very presence will turn all the plans of the terrible chapter into dust, and clenches his fist. Everyone's brains begin to explode in their heads, and lightning begins to strike around them. Neurons in their brains begin to break off because he should not have returned. And so they all got out of their car. The husband and wife stood calmly next to each other, and Song-chu felt some kind of chill after calling his father. The Jedi begin to attack him again, shooting him with holy bullets, and he begins to remember what his father said before the hunt for them began. After all, as he remembers, his father with an angry face said that he would personally come out and greet Chu-chen if he could return safe and sound. Having understood everything only now, he begins to curse our hero, saying that he is a real rat, because he used him for his own purposes, and in his head everything was like this. He sits all over himself in the car with his feet on the steering wheel, and specifically calls his father to tease him, and so that he goes out to meet him in advance. To worry cruelly about himself, clutching his head, he begins to fly into the air, and his soul has long since risen to heaven out of complete fear. The sister begins to worry about her younger brother because he literally fell into depression like Kaneki Ken while casting a spell on himself. Someone's foot starts to go out the gate, opening all these huge double doors. And the whole crowd and gang of the Song family are coming to deal with the whole situation, and they all have a pulsation on their foreheads. The main thing is that their veins there don't start to explode. With a strained face stretched to the ears, a forced face with an attempt to smile, the head of the family greets our main character with his soul right from the entrance, as he promised. Behind Song-chu, he begins to get even more scared when he sees his father's face, because by the way he is dissatisfied, you can understand that he will be punished as seriously as possible. Chu-chen at this moment, with a sincere smile, pretending to be a real stupid boy, simply asks the question of what he did wrong. Song-chu and Song-yan look at our hero as if he suddenly did this on purpose, although we all know that this is his true appearance, of course, for others. Seeing the first son-in-law, he immediately rushed into trouble with him, because without any fear he asked him about the tea that the first son-in-law should pour for him. Both brothers and sisters are completely shocked by the hero's impudence that even Zeus himself decided to strike them with lightning, because at this rate, our hero will soon go to heaven. But the red-haired boy immediately remembers that the older sister's husband immediately offered him that he would pour tea for him personally, but still does not understand something. However, we see the following scene of how tea is poured from the kettle to the very edge of the glass, and someone respectfully gives the son-in-law some tea. Of course, this was the first son-in-law, and bending over, he pulls towards him the tea that he had just poured himself, and our hero, pretending to be a fool, thanks him for the service. Brother and sister simply stood up in fear, because our hero did what he wanted to do, and he so vindictively remembered all the words that his father-in-law and eldest son-in-law said. Our hero says that the first son-in-law is as cute as lowly characters from anime, but he gets angry and gnashes his teeth, turning away from him and cursing. The father at this moment begins his attack with the help of rage, and everything is dumped on the shoulders of the red-haired man, because everyone thinks that he is the savior. Everyone immediately starts hating him, and his two older brothers-in-law bully him, as if he were some kind of nerd at school and they were captains of the rugby teams. The sister immediately flies to the aid of her younger and only brother, and tells the whole truth about how our hero beat up all the people of the wrong group and returned on his own. But the father doesn't care about all this, because in their understanding it's the same as if there were unicorns that float across the sky. Song Chu finally comes to terms with the fact that he will be punished to the fullest, and even his father orders the butler to carry a whip. But they don't know that Yashao was beaten. A butler with a cold face brings a whip from the head's office to the studio, and there our hero is surprised looking at this and holding his warm tea. The head begins to take the whip out of the tray with his own hand, and it seems that the story of 100 years ago will repeat itself again. And now black dots will appear in the margins again. A lunge like a real cotton field controller, and an accurate blow right on the target. He screams that he is now going to teach the red-haired a lesson. Of course, according to the script, our main character stops him, with a serious face as if he had just crawled out of the JoJo universe, and the head does not understand what he wants. Having become completely serious, he begins to say a Chinese quote about how even an angry tiger does not eat his children, because now he is literally killing him. He goes into frenzy mode as if we were now playing robotic combat in Brawl Stars, and his wife supports him, saying that this is a simple prevention and a common punishment. Two sons-in-law standing together begin to talk about how the family tradition should be honored, and now, interfering with the head of the family, he is writing a death sentence for himself. Song Yan stops Chu Chen saying that he doesn't need this, and Song Chu also asks him not to interfere, because this is a common thing, and everything is fine with him for now. The father is really very angry because he clenches his teeth in anger and even begins to speak obscenities, calling our hero names. So the old samurai who has lost his sword begins his attack with the help of a whip. He aims not at Song Chu but directly at Chu Chen's body, because in his opinion he has become insolent. A fit of anger makes him point his sword at his own daughter without remorse, and he tells her to dodge or simply not get in the way. Our hero, without panic, simply flies into the air like Neil Armstrong flew straight to the moon, and in the sky he and his wife dance a waltz like at a ball. The blow hit nowhere and just went along the wall, or the head of the family was also able to fly up with them. Apparently this is a roller coaster. And when the whip finally hit the wall, a bunch of different metal objects began to fall out of it, similar to needles that are used for sewing. Seeing all these shiny needles, the head of the house suddenly turned pale. How quickly his emotions change. He is clearly swinging on a swing, but not on an ordinary one, but on an emotional one. Our hero, having proven that he was right, asked Mr. Sunea if this was not an attempt at murder. Then why there were so many needles on the whip. Everyone in the house looking at this scene was shocked, and there was deathly silence, although they did not seem surprised that the father almost hit his daughter with a whip. Chu, just kneeling, fell to the floor and asked with a trembling voice why there were so many needles on the whip, because anyone could have thought that they wanted to kill him. In panic and nervousness, the father denies everything that is happening, and the mother begins to cry as if the red-haired man had already been beaten to death. But clearly someone was trying to kill Song Chu. All the suspicions of the head of the family, the wives, immediately fall on the butler who brought him the whip, because anyone looking closely would think that he did it. He begins to put pressure on the butler, but this old man is as cunning as a fox, so you definitely shouldn't trust him. The first son-in-law immediately puts forward his point of view, saying that in his opinion something was clearly wrong here, but it is unlikely that he will say anything really sensible. Of course, he immediately begins to blame his fool son-in-law, that is, our main character, for this, because they fight each other like cats and dogs on the street. And mocking them all, our hero says that he saw not only the needles themselves, but also the poison that was on the needles. And at the same time, he was proud and boastful, What he said almost made Mr. Song faint and suffer a heart attack and stroke right there. The elder sister's husband is still trying to shift all the blame onto Chu Chen's shoulders, not understanding how he can so easily kill the red-haired man in front of all family members. The mother and her older daughter say that their family would never try to kill Chu because he is the only heir to the throne here. The father, completely furious, shouts at the whole house, forcing everyone to shut up, and decides what is best to check, even though it is true or false. And he will entrust the whip into the hands of the butler, giving him the order that he show this whip along with the needles to Master Ching Feng so that he can conduct his research. The butler immediately comes running after a while and almost stumbles like a little child on the playground, saying that there really is poison there. From such news, the head is completely deprived of feelings and emotions, because if at that moment he had hit Song Chu out of anger, he would have died right here now. Everyone starts screaming that Chu Chen did all this because even though he saw the needles, he simply could not see the poison with which all these needles were soaked. Everyone demands that his father detain Chu Chen, and our hero's wife begins to get angry at all this, saying that they are all unscrupulous villains. Chu Chen himself apparently doesn't give a damn about everything that happens around him, because he just calmly drinks his sweet tea while his wife tries to protect him again. Tired of enduring all this, the head of the family suddenly began to shout to the whole house to establish silence, because in his opinion, Chu Chen had nothing to do with it. Everyone was apparently frightened by the hand of this dinosaur, because it became too quiet around that even the sound of the fly's wings was suppressed in just a second. Getting up from at this point, the head is just about to leave somewhere, telling everyone that if our main character had not said what was happening, Song Chu would no longer be alive at this moment. And he simply leaves the meeting hall and gives the order to others that they need to disperse, as if all this was just an accident. But apparently the first son-in-law could not get his way. Our fool son-in-law again pathetically puts his hands on the back of his head while thanking his departing father-in-law, and everyone else shows their hostility towards Chu Chen. Kogad and our son-in-law were also about to leave. A quiet red-haired man approaches him from behind like a ninja samurai, calling him by name, and he immediately turns to him. The very second he turned around, he fell to the floor and began to thank him while hitting his forehead on the ceramic floor. Everyone, especially his brother-in-law and sisters, were surprised. And falling as hard as possible, he began to say that he was sorry and asked for forgiveness for being so rude to him these 5 years as soon as he came to their house. Our macho immediately lifts him up from the floor with a smile, telling him that everything is fine and there is no reason to worry, and the first son-in-law stands behind him in a lack of understanding, clutching his head. It was still the same night as before, but at the same time the sky became lighter, probably thanks to the bright moon that illuminates everything around. Now the time has come to sit down together and figure out the current circumstances, but Song Chu is not at all angry with his father, because he didn't even know about the needles. The father asks Song Chu to tell him what really happened in the forest with Chu Chen and how he returned, because the wrong group may be involved in this. Afraid of this question, the redhead immediately begins to scratch the back of his head, and before doing so, he asks his father something that he needs to know, and prepares him for the shock. He asks if he had high blood pressure, or if he experienced symptoms of a heart attack. This is probably some kind of humiliation dignity of the head of the family. In anger from his questions, he begins to shout at him so that he quickly tells about what happened there, because he has nothing of the sort, and he is as healthy as an ox. This historian even decided to change clothes for the right occasion, and talked about it as a feat, as if this were an ancient age when stories were told in brothels. He talks about the part where Ye Xiao starts to go crazy, and his son-in-law beats him down saying that the garbage has its own place. This greatly stresses the head of the family, and he is shaking all over with anger. And when he heard that Chu Chen had put a trash can on Mr. Ye's head, he completely lost his mind with anger, and even with stress he was able to break the cup of tea in his hands. He starts screaming. It looks like this grandfather had not just high blood pressure and a heart attack, but even cerebral thrombosis, and he almost flew into heaven from such stories. The noise rises throughout the whole house, and even in the cover of the dead of night, arguments and cries in the family did not subside about what happened during the chase and hunt, because the fate of their family depended on it. Mr. Song's wife begins to cry and already bury their family, saying that now the Yi family and the wrong group will completely abandon the tripartite agreement. The mother, in a stressful situation, runs to prepare a new divorce agreement, because this could probably help restore relations with the Ye family, but Song Yan is against it. At this moment, the one who ruined everything looks out of the door and tells his wife not to worry because it was just a three-way cooperation. He looks at it. Our self-confident hero has already thought of a way out of this situation, saying that tomorrow he will be able to achieve cooperation with the Sia family, because this is much better. She looks at him and asks if he has recovered, because our hero has recently begun to behave like an adequate person, and not like the fool that they call him. He says that over the past few years, right now he feels better than ever, And delighted, she asks him to tell him where his house is. And he thinks after her question while feeling depressed, because despite the fact that he has recovered a little, it is still difficult for him to remember about home. She begins to calm him down, because there's nothing wrong with it, it seems, according to her. He lost his memory when she hit him with a car, but she could have sent him home. While she supported him, he thought hard for several seconds and apparently already remembered where his home was. This made Song Yan listen to him, and he begins to say that his family is the Chu family, which is located in the capital and is the #1 family in China, and he is their offspring. This pride surrounds him. He begins to play the fool, talking about how powerful his family members are in heaven and on earth, and it was they who taught our hero martial arts, and she thinks that our hero has become more and more a fool. Not paying attention to his nonsense, she begins to talk to him on the topic of feelings, asking about how he felt during these few years in their family with her. She begins to look at him worriedly, because he's going to say everything that he didn't like, because over the past 5 years no one has thought about his feelings. And he was worried the fact that his wife, although she married him 5 years ago, still did nothing to develop their relationship. She began to blush at this.